and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be talking all about my favorite Omegaverse romances. Hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back, and welcome back to Trope Week. If you don't know what Trope Week is, it is a series I do here on my channel where every single day for an entire week I pick one specific romance book trope and give you a bunch of recommendations. In this series for a while, they are my favorite videos to film, so I will leave the playlist down below if you want to see the other tropes that I've done before. Today is all about Omegaverse, which personally is one of my favorite subgenres. You know anything about me, I love things that are wild and crazy and bonkers, and Omegaverse is gonna deliver every time. Yes, it is. If you're not familiar with Omegaverse, let me tell you, babe, you are missing out. You're missing out. I did do a video last year called Omegaverse 101, a little cute little class session that I'll leave down below if you want to know everything about the genre. I think I'm gonna update that video, but in short, if you're not familiar with Omegaverse, I always say the same thing. It's like if Fated Mates and Shifter Romances had a baby. They just had a baby, okay? It's way more intense and enhanced than that, though. Just in a world where people are born with designations, you can either be an alpha, a beta, or an omega. Alphas are kind of like top of the food chain. They're a little bit more dominant. They crave packs and family and really have like that instinct to protect their pack. Those Omegaverses, alphas also have what we call a knot, which is some very interesting, fun, you know? Alphas are packing. Okay, they're packing. We'll leave it at that. Betas, which are more like your regular, degular human, okay? Their senses aren't as enhanced. They don't have as many like biological needs and urges as like alphas and omegas do. Sleep on betas, okay? If you have like a polyamorous Omegaverse, betas are usually the more like level-headed ones and kind of like keep the pack together. You have omegas who are a little bit more rare. They're pretty treasured because they do complete packs. Not always, but they do tend to be the more submissive ones. They like to nest, they like to create homes. Most omegas have heats, which means that they crave like physical intimacy from alphas every couple of months. So that's kind of just like the basics of what Omegaverse is and what the universe is. Most Omegaverse does have fated mates, but you will find a lot of polyamorous Omegaverses with different types of pairing. And then I always do caution people to read trigger warnings if they're ever going to pick up an Omegaverse, because sometimes there can be very dark Omegaverses just because of the hierarchy of like alphas and omegas. Make sure that you read the trigger warnings because some of them can lean on the darker side, but there are plenty of sweet Omegaverse recommendations that I will mention here in this video. But for people who are new to the genre, it can seem a little bit overwhelming, but most authors do a really good job at explaining the universe. They tend to explain the universe either in the author's note or in the book itself. Okay, so now that I explained all of that, we can finally get into the recommendations, so let's just hop in. First up is a book that I literally just read this year, and it instantly became one of my favorite Omegaverse ever, and that is Whiskey and Sin by Emily Rath. This is a male-male romance, and it follows one of our heroes, Silas, who has honestly been through so much. He was actually kidnapped by a group of people who were trafficking omegas, and then one day he manages to escape, but he's really badly injured, and that is where our hero Bear ends up finding him on the side of the road. He ends up taking him in, taking him back to his cabin, and nursing him back to health. Our hero Bear is an alpha, and Silas really has not had the best luck when it comes to alphas. On a lot of medication that kind of like masks his scent, so a lot of people think he is a beta. Alpha in this book does realize that Silas is in trouble and he's running from something, so he ends up helping him escape those people. Alpha in this book is honestly such a sweet little cinnamon roll, like the way he loves him and protects him. This gives such soulmate energy, like our characters were meant to be together, and their bond is absolutely stunning. I love this one. If you've never picked up an Omegaverse, I feel like this one is a really easy one to pick up. It explains the dynamics perfectly and is such a well-written romance, but I'm like a little biased because I love everything that Emily Rath writes. So the next one is probably the most popular Omegaverse. I feel like this is where a lot of people start, is the Sweet Omegaverse series by Catherine Moon. The first book in the series is Baby and the Late Night Howlers. This book you can read as a standalone, but it is a part of a series that Catherine Moon and Lana Cole kind of co-write together. Basically like go back and forth in writing a book in the series, but Baby and the Late Night Howlers is the first one. It follows our heroine Baby, who her entire life she thought that she was a beta, and one night she's at a bar and actually presents as an Omega, which is kind of dangerous because she is surrounded by a bunch of unmated alphas. Basically, her entire life is flipped upside down because she needs to find a pack before her first heat. There is a beta at the club that ends up helping her and getting her to a facility where she can be safe and pick her own pack. Ends up having a connection with that beta. He is a part of a motorcycle club, and that is who she picks as her pack. So this is an MC romance. This is also a poly reverse harem romance because there are like 12 different alphas in this pack that she chooses. Some of them she really just has like family bonds with, and then the other 6 she is more romantically involved in. I love this one. I love it. It's a fun, steamy time. Also has a little bit of a suspense plot because there is a rival MC gang that is kidnapping Omegas and selling them to the black market. That kind of suspense plot kind of goes throughout the entire series. I think everyone's favorite in the series is like Lola and the Millionaires. That one's a really popular one. I just love Catherine Moon's writing as a whole, and I think this is like one of her best series that she's ever written. Okay, so the next few books are from one of my favorite authors of all time, and that is Marina Vivancos. I talk about her books endlessly on this channel, but guys, I just love her and I feel like she's criminally underrated. She's a Kindle Unlimited author. She writes a mixture of novellas and full-length novels that really celebrate diversity in the queer community. Pretty much all of her books are sweepingly romantic, but also deeply, deeply emotional. Like, they have me crying half the time, but I'm just a huge fan of her writing, and she has quite a few Omegaverse books, so I'm just going to talk about my favorites. So it's hard to narrow it down. One of my favorite Omegaverse that she writes is her Alpha Omega hockey series, which is exactly as it sounds. It's a bunch of hockey romances in a Omegaverse world. So the first book in the series is Fresh Ice. All of these books are male-male romances, by the way, and this one follows our heroes Alonzo and Levi. Alonzo is an Omega presenting as an alpha because in the hockey community it is a very alpha dominated sport, so he is trying to hide his destination. This is his rookie year, so he really feels like he has to prove himself, and he ends up rooming with our hero Levi, who is an alpha. This really starts off as a friends lovers romance. They're roommates, they become really close. In that closeness, Levi discovers Alonzo's secret and realizes that he's an Omega and decides to help him through his heats, help him get through the hockey season. They honestly have such a beautiful connection. I absolutely adore them together. And then the second one in the series is called Face Off. This one is an angsty second chance romance. So our two heroes are captains of rival teams. It's known within the media that these two do not get along, but the truth is they have quite a bit of a past. When they were youngers and it was their rookie season, they fell in love. Our heroes, Orion, is an Omega, but again, he is trying to present himself as an alpha so he can play hockey, professional hockey, and the relationship just doesn't work out because of those dynamics. About 10 years later, the media actually leaks Orion's medical records and the entire world realizes that he's an Omega, so he's dealing with the backlash of that and also trying to get through his heat, and him and our other hero kind of reconnect, and it follows their second chance romance and is angsty and messy and all the good tropes when it comes to Omegaverse. I loved it. And then the last one in this series is called Overtime, and this one is really special because it is an alpha-alpha pairing, which is pretty rare. Heroes Ishar and Zane are childhood friends, and they've been best friends forever. They used to play in the minor leagues together. When they got drafted to play professional hockey, they got sent to completely different teams. They've never had the opportunity to play together, and they've always lived in different states ever since they got drafted. And our hero Zane ends up getting traded to play on the same team as his best friend Ishar, and they end up rooming together, and it follows their friends lovers romance. Again, I absolutely adored this alpha-alpha pairing because it's so rare in Omegaverse not to have an Omega in the story, but I just love two dominant heroes going at it, you know? Those are my favorite Omegaverses that she has, but she does have a series called Honeythorn, which is another Omegaverse series. There's only 2 books in the series called Honeythorn and Cherryvine. Both of them are historical. Both of them have arranged marriages, and I really love them. So if you want to read even more Omegaverses by Marina Vivancos, that series is also really awesome. Another one that I really adore is Fist, Fangs, and Rival Omega by Ash Moon. This is an enemies to lovers romance. Our two heroes are professional boxers, and they're fighting for the same type of championship. One of our heroes is an Omega, and same thing, boxing is an alpha dominated sport, so he's really had to prove himself. And then our other hero is an alpha who has consistently like won the championship, so he's trying to keep his title. They end up training together, and it follows their enemies to lovers romance. This also has an mpreg trope. If you're not familiar with mpreg, it's basically when a male Omega can get pregnant. This whole series is called the Moonstar Dating Agency series because in the books there is a dating agency that helps you find your fated mate, kind of like by reading the stars and astrology and your energy. And our two heroes do end up getting paired together because of this dating agency, so it does have a fated mates trope. all of the books do in this series. A couple of other books in the series and really liked it, but this one is my favorite. But if you like Fated Mates, you will enjoy this series as a whole. Another one of my favorites is Slow Heat by Lita Blake. This is another male Omegaverse series that has Mpreg in it. So in this universe, alphas get sent to like a special university to learn how to be good alphas and to properly care for their omegas. The idea is that they have to get through this college before they meet their fated mates. However, our hero ends up meeting his fated mate, and it turns out to be his professor. So there is a little bit of an age gap romance in here. It is slightly forbidden because the alpha is a little bit younger, the omega is a little bit older. I will say definitely check out the trigger warnings. There are trigger warnings for sexual assault and infertility. This one is a little bit more emotional, but our characters' romance is so hard earned and they feel so perfectly matched to one another. I absolutely adore it. One another pairing with two alphas. Another good one is Unnatural by Alessandra Hazard. I love this one. This is my best friend's favorite book, Desiree. She recommended this one to me. It takes place in like an alien universe where two planets are at war with one another, and they decide that to create peace, they're going to have this political marriage. One of our heroes is the prince and the heir to his kingdom, and the other is a politician to his kingdom. So they end up embarking into this political marriage to create peace within their community, but it turns out that they're both alphas. Everyone expects them not to be suited to one another, but they end up having like this primal connection. Feral. Okay, they are feral for each other. If you like romances with like two mutually obsessive heroes, then this one is absolutely the one for you. Next one is The Rockstar's Omega by Hannah Hayes. So this is a rockstar romance. Our hero is a part of a band and they are all secretly alphas. Heroine is an omega and she ends up signing up for a meet and greet to meet her favorite band, and that is where she meets our hero. And the second that they meet each other, they realize that they're each other's fated mates. Romance is a little bit forbidden because our hero has not told like the entire world that he is an alpha. End up getting thrusted into this fated mate bond as our hero is literally on tour with his band. This one is fun, steamy, and I really liked it. The author that writes really good Omega verses is Jet Masterston. You can read a lot of their books on Kindle Unlimited. Both male romances. The first one that I read is Pretty Boy. So this one follows our hero Remy, who is going to culinary school, and he's just like a broke college student. He's really struggling to put himself through college. Kind of just needs some money, so he ends up going to this company that matches people with sugar daddies, and he ends up becoming a little sugar baby. He ends up meeting our hero, who is a CEO of a company, and they kind of strike this sugar baby, sugar zaddy situation. Obviously, it has a little bit more of a steamier plotline because it's a sugar baby romance, but it's pretty clear that our characters have a deep connection. Listen. I'm trying to find a sugar zaddy, okay? This book is goals. This book is dreams. This is everything that I want. I love our hero in this one. He is like that alpha possessive hero who like wants to worship the ground that his omega walks on. And he spoils him. I love it. I love it. There are some books where like the omegas don't want to be spoiled, and I'm like, what? Excuse me? Excuse me? Spoil me. Love me. Spend your money on me. Let me create a little nest, okay? And cuddle me. All of that. I love it. In another life, I was an omega. The next one by the same author is called Cutting the Braid, and this is a historical Omegaverse. This one also has kind of like a fantasy, whimsical vibe to it. So our hero comes from a really small town where it's tradition that you are not supposed to cut your hair until you find your fated mate. And he has this very long, beautiful hair because he is unmated. Omega in this book is gorgeous and the entire town wants him, but he's never really felt that connection with anyone until a new carpenter moves into their town, and the chemistry is absolutely electric. It follows their romance and it's honestly so sweet. This one is a little bit more slow burn and sweet, doesn't have like the heavy trigger warnings that some other Omegaverse books do have, and I really liked it. Next one is a novella, and this one is called Reversing a Rivalry by Kit Kennedy. And this one, it follows two rival packs that for years and years were with war against one another. One of the packs ends up offering his son to live with the other pack, kind of like as a way to show their trust. So our hero Caleb goes to live with this rival pack when he's really young, and as he's growing up he ends up bonding and mating with one of the alphas there. It is actually expected for him to present as an alpha. His family doesn't know that he's an omega because it's kind of known that he is supposed to take over his family's pack when he gets older. And now that our hero is older, he has to tell his family the truth, and it follows their romance as they kind of like navigate those different like political aspects of their two rival packs. I feel like I didn't describe that book well, but it's a short friends to lovers novella, so just read it. You'll love it. Okay, so if you know anything about me, you guys know I love a good polyamorous romance. That's like one of my favorite things ever. More people, more fun. I love a good spicy, steamy time. I like things that are wild and bonkers. Poly romance plus Omegaverse, it's gonna deliver every single time. So the next couple ones that I have to talk about are all either reverse harem or polyamorous. So the first one is Heat Haven by Sarah Blue. This is a part of her Heat Haven Omegaverse series, and I believe there's maybe like 5 books in the series, but this is the first one, and this one is novella length. The rest of the series are full-length novels, but the heroine in this book, Emily, is an Omega, and in this world there is an agency called Heat Haven that basically caters to Omegas, where they can have a safe place to go to when they're in heat or unmated. You can go there and pick your own alphas, and it is in like a controlled environment, so Omegas aren't forced into an alpha bond. Our heroine is about to go into her heat, so she goes to the company to see if it's something that she wants to do, and she ends up getting stuck in an elevator with an alpha that she is immensely attracted to, so it triggers her heat, and they end up having a very fun, spicy time in the elevator. This one is a reverse harem book, so throughout the book she does meet other alphas that she bonds with. I love this one. It's such a good start to the series. I honestly love every single book in this series. The third book in this series is also a really good one. This one's called Protector's Promise. Our heroine is a pop star, and she recently had some pictures of her released to the public, and they were like very compromising pictures. The last alpha that she spent her heat with took those pictures and released them, so she's really embarrassed, and she ends up hiring some security because some people are harassing her. This is where our hero comes in. He is an alpha and he is her bodyguard, so this is a bodyguard romance. Again, if you like two characters who are mutually like obsessed and possessive over one another, then you'll really like this one. Next one kind of has a similar plot line as Heat Haven because there's like an agency where Omegas go to during their heats, and that is called Heat Clinic by Alexis S. Osborne. Our heroine is an Omega. She's a little bit older. She hasn't really found her pack, and she's feeling bummed. She doesn't want to spend her heat alone. She ends up going to this facility that is filled with alphas that can help her with her heat. This is a poly romance between 3 guys and 1 girl. Our heroine is an Omega, 2 of the guys are betas, and then one of our heroes is an alpha. Our hero, who is an alpha, has been searching for his pack for a really long time, so when he sees our other characters at this agency, he realizes that they are his fated mates, and they all kind of form a pack together, and it follows their romance. This one is pretty low angst, doesn't have a lot of trigger warnings. It's kind of just like a fun, smutty, steamy time. Next up is another poly romance, and that is Switch Heater. It follows our heroine Ripley, who is an Omega. In this universe, Omegas also go to a special schooling to help them find their packs and their alphas. The night of her graduation, she ends up meeting a female alpha named Sin, and our other hero Kian, who is a beta, and she's like instantly connected to them, instantly attracted to them. But the problem is they are already mated to another Omega. In most packs, there are never more than 1 Omegas because Omegas can get very jealous and territorial. In this book, our 2 Omegas cannot help but be drawn together, so they end up kind of like combining their packs. This is a poly romance with 6 people. 6 people, yeah. I said what I said. 2 girls and 4 guys in this pack. 2 Omegas, 1 beta, and 3 alphas. There's a lot going on in this book, and I love it. I'm obsessed. I love all of the different characters. Like I said, more people, more fun. Another amazing poly romance is Alpha Sacrifice by Nora Phoenix. This is a poly romance between 4 guys. You have 2 alphas, a beta, and an Omega. They're all kind of connected through a fated mate bond. The hero, who is an Omega, lives with his best friend, who is a beta. They kind of have like a friends to benefit situation. They absolutely love each other, but our hero, who is an Omega, is really craving an alpha bond that our other hero cannot give him. So he ends up reaching out to an alpha that he trusts to help him through his heat, and it ends up connecting all of our 4 characters together, and they end up building a pack together. Hero, who is an alpha, is destined to be like the one true alpha who is supposed to be the leader of everyone, so it follows that plot point. There is a lot going on in this book, so I feel like I'm not properly describing it, but if you like polyamorous books, if you like Omegaverse, then this one is a really good one to check out. And then the last poly romance that I'm going to talk about today is called Manx by Grace McGinty. This one is kind of like an alien romance. They're like an alien species, I guess. So our heroine is kind of down on her luck. She is working at a strip club to really support herself and her younger sister. 5 heroes are all drawn to her scent and go to where she works, and when they see her, they realize that she is like their fated mate. They are a part of this alien species that is going extinct because there are like no female Omegas that can continue their bloodline. They're not able to find any other female Omegas. Their species is going to go extinct. So when they find her, it is so special, and they end up offering her protection if she agrees to become a part of their pack. I really like this one. It's a fun poly romance. I haven't read the rest of the books in the series, but I do do need to pick it up really soon. If you want a really fun Omegaverse, I read a Hermione fan fiction. So that's Draco and Hermione from the Harry Potter franchise fan fiction on AO3. That was Omegaverse. And let me tell you, I loved it. It's called All You Want. This beautiful binding was done by my friend Khadijah. I'll leave her Instagram down below. So freaking stunning. Like, get into it. She killed it with this binding. This one follows after the Battle of Hogwarts, and Draco and Hermione go back to Hogwarts to finish their schooling. Hermione just wants to, you know, finish her classes, lay low. Turns out she is an Omega, which is a very rare and treasured within the wizarding community. There's all these different alphas that are fighting for her, and she ends up having a connection with Draco, who is an alpha. So it's an Omegaverse, enemies to lovers, Draco Hermione fanfiction. I loved it. I loved it so much. This is by the same author who wrote Manacled, but it's very different. Manacled is like very emotional and deep, and this one is just fun and smutty and spicy. It's an Omegaverse. I absolutely adore it. Okay, I feel like I've been talking forever. I have so many more Omegaverses that I love. So if you want a part 2 to this video, let me know, because it is my favorite subgenre. Please, 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 if you read Omegaverse, leave recommendations down below. I would love to read them. Absolutely. Like, I want to read all of the Omegaverses, so leave all the recommendations down below. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!